I'm in the procedure section, step 1. So first, make sure we measure R1's value. The resistor R1 showing here is 2.7 kilo ohm resistor. Its color code should be red, purple, red. We need to use our digital multimeter measure the actual value of that resistor and then record the number in the entry in step 1. Step 2, we need to build the circuits in the breadboard. As you can see, figure 1a, that's the schematic, and then figure 1b is the real circuit. Looks like this one. We have the resistor, this one 2.7 kilo ohm, and then connect to a 10 kilo ohm potentiometer. And the center wire, the center terminal, and the terminal on one side connect together in the same line. Together connect to one side of the resistor. And then the other wire, the other side of the potentiometer connects to ground. Right, grounds connect to here, to the other side, and then to this ground. Later we connect that to our DC power supply's ground. This red wire connects to the DC power supply's positive voltage. First, we need to set the power source to be 12 volts. We use a pair of the banana to banana cable. So first, let's connect the red to the red port of our digital multimeter. And then connect the black port to the black port of the digital multimeter. And then we're gonna spin the knob all the way to the left. We want to start with minimum 0 volt. Afterward, make sure turn on the DC power supply and also turn on the meter here. But we're gonna use the DC. We measure DC voltage. Unpress the button. Make sure this button is unpressed. Since we measure voltage, we need to click on the voltage mode and then turn on the machine. As you can see, currently it shows 40 or 50 some numbers because none of the button is pressed here. How about this? Let's begin with a range. The top line, right, there are 3 lines, 3 blue lines. The top line is for the voltage. Since we need to measure a 12 volts, we need to use the 20 volt range. So click on that button. Make sure the button for the voltage mode is activated. And then since we need 12 volts, we need to use the 20 volt range. Right, there are 1, 2, 3 blue lines. This blue line is for voltage. The middle blue line is for current. And then the third blue line is for resistance. For voltage, we look at that blue line. This 20 means you can measure up to 20 volts. Since we only need to measure 12 volts, click on that button. Now let's spin the knob to increase the voltage. We need a 12 volts, so we change here all the way to 12 volts. Cool, great. Reduce that a little bit. We need a more accurate reading. Perfect, we get a 12 volt now. Since we already set up the circuit, we can simply disconnect the port and then connect our DC power supply to the circuits. If you read the step 2 paragraph, we need to construct the circuit as shown in here. Figure A, figure 1A, figure 1B. Figure 1A and the figure 1B shows an example of the circuit constructed on the prototype board. First, we need to set the potentiometer to be 10 kilo ohms. So we are going to disconnect the potentiometer. So we are going to disconnect that here and there. We want to measure the resistance of this should be 10 kilo ohms. This is the 10 kilo ohm potentiometer. As you can see, it's 10 kilo ohm. We want to change the number, spin this until the resistance is 0.5 kilo ohms. So we are going to disconnect the multimeter. We can use the banana to alligator clips cable. So this one here, this one over there. Since we need to measure resistance, we're gonna click on that button and connect the middle wire and the wire on the right hand side. What we need is just the middle wire and this wire. We don't need to connect the other wire, since later if you look at the circuit, these two will be together. If you want, you can also attach that here. That works too. Okay, great. Currently it shows is a 8.93 and a kilo ohm. If you look at the table, we need to begin with 0.5 kilo ohm. Therefore, we need to adjust our potentiometer to be 0.5K. So we are going to decrease this resistance. Perfect. Now we get a 0.5 kilo ohm resistor. This part is done. We're gonna disconnect that. Disconnect here. Do not change that, otherwise the resistance will be changed. And then we connect here back to our circuit. We connect this wire here, this wire there, and then this one to any of the holes in the top line to ground. That is our circuit shown here, and which represent this part of the circuit. So we have this one, right, and there, which is the black cable in the blue line. These two connect together. Now we are going to connect our DC power supply. We use a different cable. Disconnect that. We can connect that cable here, this cable there, and we are going to connect the alligator clips to the circuit. Remember, this one has been measured and is 12 volts. The 12 volts go to the circuit. Our goal now is to measure V1 and then measure V2. So next, we are going to get the other pair of cables. This cable, I'm going to use the banana to mini grabber cables. So I'm going to first change here to voltage, connect red, and then connect the black cable. The table shows we need to measure V1, where V1 is the voltage across resistor R1, or here. So I'm going to connect that here, and then connect the other one there. The voltage is 10.02 volts. So I'm going to write 10.02 volts here. And then next, I'm going to measure V2, which is the voltage across that resistor. To measure that, I'm going to disconnect this one, disconnect this grabber, and measure from here, right? That's the start of this potentiometer, and then measure this point. But since it's very hard to measure, I'm going to use a jumper wire. So I get a jumper wire and then connect that any holes in the line, such as here. And then connect this to there. The voltage across that potentiometer is 1.98 volt. So I'm going to write it down. This is 1.98 volts. And over here, this entry, we need to compute. We need to multiply the current, make sure compute current first, and then to this. The product is this entry. Next, let's work on this one. We need to use the same 12 volt, so we are not going to change that voltage source voltage. We need to disconnect our potentiometer. So we're gonna unplug here. So first of all, it's a good practice to turn off the power source. And then we're gonna disconnect that potentiometer, because we need to measure the resistance of this. How to measure resistance? We're gonna use this cable now. So disconnect that, disconnect here. We're gonna connect these two cables. Actually, only one is enough. Here. And the other one is there. Make sure connect the center one. Great. Change here to resistance mode. Right, it's still 0.5. Now we need to increase from 0.5 kilo ohm to 1 kilo ohm. So we're gonna spin this. Make sure they are connected. If it's very hard to connect, how about this? Let's put them here. Put them in separate lines. Or if you like, we can put them here. And we measure from here to there. is 2.5. We are going to spin this until it shows a 1. Perfect. Now it's 1 kilo ohm. Great. We're gonna disconnect these cables, put this back to the place it's supposed to be, and then we are going to turn on the source. Turn on the source, and now we are going to measure the voltage for V1 and then V2. Change here to voltage mode, and then use that cable. Do the same procedure, same step. Measure from here to this point. So the reading is 8.65 volts. In our table, we're gonna put we're gonna put 8.65 volts for V1. Now we get A2 now. So we measure from here. And then to here. The voltage across this potentiometer is 3.35 volts. So we're gonna record this number, 3.35 volts. So we get 3.35 volts. First, we need to find the current. Current equals to 12 volts divided by, right, so this one equals to 12 volts divided by 2.7K plus 1K. So equal to 12 volts over 2.7K. This is 2.7K. This equals to 1K. So make sure get the number. This is just a formula. I only put the formula here so you can see the step. You can see the way to calculate it, but make sure get the number using calculator. And V1 is this, V2 is that. For finding the power on P2, use the current times V2. That answer is here. Now we're gonna do one more thing. Right, there are many resistance. Let's do one more. Let's change the potentiometer to 2K. So we're gonna redo the step. Disconnect potentiometer. You can disconnect that wire. Also turn off the source. That's a good practice. Change here to resistance mode. We are measuring the resistance of the potentiometer. So we connect that here. This cable over there. Currently, put that here. For some reason, perhaps it's changed to 0.86, but now we need a 2 kilo ohms. So rotate this. To 2 kilo ohms. Great. So the potentiometer gives a 2 kilo ohm resistance. Now we can unplug the measurements and then put this back. Great. So next, we change here back to voltage. And then turn on the source. The source provides voltage to the circuit. We are going to measure the voltage of R1 and then R2. So get a meter, make sure it's in the voltage reading, voltage mode, and then click on that, click on here. As you can see, we have 5.62 volts go to resistor R1. So this is 5.62 volts. So for 2 kilo ohm potentiometer, we get 5.62 volts. Now we're gonna measure the other potentiometer's voltage. Disconnect that, disconnect here, and then we are going to measure from this point to this point. The voltage equal to 6.38 volts. So 6.38, this equal to 6.38 volts. We're gonna compute this current that equals to 12 volts over 2.7K plus 2K. So over here, this number is the total 12 volts, right? 12 volts divided by 2.7K plus 2K. So we have a 2.7K, this is the 2K. So the quotient is the current. Make sure to compute this number. This number multiplied that voltage is the power here. Now we complete 1, 2, 3. There are a few more we need to complete. We just need to follow the same steps to complete the remaining entries. And this is our experiment.